Joshua Wirt is passionate about helping seniors live independently no matter where they are along life's journey. He's owner and CEO of English Rose, founded in 1997, which provides highly professional and personalized care to clients who want to age in place in the comfort of their own home at English Rose Home Care, as well as residents who enjoy living with a few roommates in beautiful single-family homes nestled into some of the Twin Cities' most picturesque neighborhoods at English Rose Suites. Since its inception, English Rose has specialized in caring for people with Alzheimer's, Parkinson's disease, and other complex medical conditions, earning a national reputation for its person-centric, non-pharmacological approach to health and well-being, including being featured in the 2019 PBS documentary, Revolutionizing Dementia Care. Since then, as a result of ever-growing inquiries from the families it serves, English Rose has expanded its service offering to include educational curriculum helping people of all ages lower their risk of Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. So here's Joshua Wirt.
Thank you. I've never had a microphone clipped to me before. Do I need to look down, or can you hear me just like this? Okay, you can hear, I'm getting thumbs up from the back. Fantastic. Thanks so much. As mentioned, my name is Joshua Wirt. I'm the owner and operator of a wonderful company called English Rose. And before I dive in and tell you about what we can do today to make sure or to minimize the chance that we're going to get dementia in the future, I just want to tell you a little bit about English Rose, just 3 minutes, because it's part of the journey what got me here interested in this topic about brain health. And so, with no further ado, English Rose is a company. We offer residential care, in-home care, and dementia navigation. First about residential care. We own 6 single-family homes nestled into Edina and Minnetonka neighborhoods with 6 residents living in each home. 5 of our homes are memory care homes. So the 6 residents living there all have Alzheimer's or some other form of dementia. This is a shocking statistic. This comes from Governor Walz's study on aging. In long-term care facilities, the average ratio of caregiver to resident is an unbelievable 1 to 18. 1 to 18 is the average in Minnesota in long-term care facilities. What really sets us apart at English Rose is our caregiver to resident ratio is 1 to 3. And so it's a whole different experience than being in one of those big buildings. Because we have those really amazing caregiver ratios, it allows us to hire just the most amazing caregivers who we are rigorous about recruiting and training and onboarding and coaching. And so we have very relationship-driven caregivers taking care of the residents who live in what we call English Rose Suites. Those are our homes. And some of these pictures, I don't know how well you can see this, but some of these pictures just show you life inside of our homes. And as you can see, it probably doesn't look like anything you've seen in a memory care ward in a big building, on a highway. Okay? People wake up whenever they want to. They enjoy homemade meals. They welcome friends and families to their home. They run errands. They eat at restaurants. They go to shows. They participate in the operation of the home if they want to, and they get to explore everything they've enjoyed in life. They get to continue to enjoy in their homes, like their hobbies. So here's Bob, one of our residents, a lifetime ballroom dancer, teaching all of our caregivers how to do ballroom dancing. Here's Denny at a football game. He's a huge Vikings fan, got season tickets, brought one of our caregivers with him to the game against the Detroit Lions, and they had a great time there. Luann, she's a lifelong homemaker, and so she loves helping out with the dishes. It gives her life and purpose. Reading books, drinking coffee. This is not what memory care looks like in 99% of memory wards, but it's what it looks like at English Rose. So that's the business that we're in. About 10 to 15 years ago, people started calling us and say, I'm not ready to move to English Rose, or my mom's not ready to move to English Rose. But there's can you bring English Rose into our home? And that started our in-home care business. And so we offer companion care, personal assistance, skilled nursing, and lots of specialty services, all taking care of people in the comfort of their own home. And I would say about half of our residents don't have memory issues in our home care business, but half of them do. And some people with our support live their whole life in the comfort of their own home with English Rose supporting them. The same caregivers and the same training and the same rigor and the same seriousness we take towards finding the greatest caregivers in the world at English Rose Suites are the same caregivers that are deployed into your home if you were to hire English Rose to come into one of your homes. And then we just launched like last week this new service. Some people who are living at home alone, some seniors, don't need personal assistance. They don't need memory care, but they could use a little help around the house. And my mom's a great example. Let me just make sure she's not out here. Okay, so my mom's a great example. Hey, Mom, would you like a caregiver 8 hours a week in your house? Absolutely not. She doesn't need care. She's driving around in her Mini, okay? She's having her independent life. And so, but we, her children, would love if somebody had eyes and ears and a little bit of help. She shouldn't be making her queen-size bed every week. And she shouldn't be taking these big boxes off these shelves full of her old pottery. You know, things can happen. And so we offer light housekeeping, laundry assistant, meal preparation, home organization, and errand running. This is not caregiving. This is just help. So this is a new service we're offering. And if you know anybody that could use a little help around the house, keep us in mind because we've expanded into this business. And lastly is dementia education. We've been dementia specialists now for more than 25 years. We are, as was mentioned, we have a national reputation for our approach to dementia care, and so families often hire us to do education. Some families have their own caregivers, but they're not necessarily that familiar with dementia, and so we come in and can train those caregivers. Some people actually have us manage their caregiving team. We are able, for some families that we're offering consulting services, to integrate all the different care providers, doctors and therapies and neurologists as a single source of integration. And we have 24/7 on-call support. So for some families, just hire us to help them through their journey of dementia. What's interesting though, just like we had the suites and then people started saying to us, hey, I don't know if I'm ready to move in, but can you come into our house and help us here? Then we got into dementia navigation, and you know what? In the last 5 years, we've had a lot of people saying, okay, I understand you guys are the best at dementia care. Can you tell me, how do I not get dementia? You know, it's great. My mom has it, and I'm so glad you're here. What can I do now to not get dementia? And this started us on a journey of brain health. There is a lot of interest in people my age and people of all ages saying, what can I do to lower my risk of getting dementia? And that's how we got into this new business. That's really not even a business, just a public service, which is talking about brain health and what can we do today to make sure we don't get dementia in the future. And so that's our topic today. Thanks for taking a minute and allowing me to talk about English Rose and tell you why I'm here talking about brain health. And with no further ado, let's talk about that topic. So before we dive into the things you can do to reduce your risk of getting Alzheimer's or another form of dementia in the future, I want to make sure we're all on the same page of what dementia is. This is a chart that shows cognitive functioning, really high, really low on the vertical axis. And on the horizontal axis, we have time. And as time passes, this white line up here is normal cognitive decline. As we age, all of us will start to have a little cognitive decline. I'm 56 years old. I already have some cognitive decline. I'm already thinking about words I can't find and noticing that I'm slowing down just a little bit. That's normal. That's normal aging. That's not dementia. What is dementia is when things go off the rails and your cognitive decline starts to drop at a really accelerated rate. And when it starts to drop a little bit, that's defined as MCI. I don't know if anyone's ever heard that term, mild cognitive decline. And as it drops even further, it then qualifies as dementia, okay? So that's the difference between normal cognitive decline and dementia. Any questions? Okay. So I'm not a doctor, and I'm not a neurologist. So this page, if you ask 10 questions and dive deep here, I'm not going to be able to answer all your questions. But I do want to answer the question, what is going on? What is causing dementia? Okay? Dementia is caused by physical changes that happen in your brain, okay, that impair how your neurons, your brain is mostly just a neuron network. It impairs how your neurons communicate, survive, and function. And when those things start to degrade, it's called neurodegeneration. What are the primary causes of neurodegeneration? There's really two things. The first thing is called compromised vascular functioning. So your brain weighs about 2% of your body weight. Can anyone guess how much of the nutrients and oxygen that you put into your body does your brain consume? 2%? 3%? 20%. It's a really high-functioning organ, okay? It's the most high-functioning organ in your body. In order for it to be that productive, it needs a lot of things. One thing it needs is a delivery of oxygen and glucose and other really important nutrients. And if it's ever not getting enough of that stuff, you can start down the journey of neurodegeneration. Also, because it's so high functioning, because it's working so hard, it produces waste products. Well, if you don't have a system that's pulling those waste products out of your brain, that can also cause neurodegeneration. And so one of the biggest contributors to dementia is a compromised vascular functioning, because the delivery system of good stuff in and bad stuff out is your blood system. That's called your vascular system. If your blood flow system, if your brain is not getting enough blood or not removing enough toxins quick enough, that is a primary cause of dementia. The second main bucket, I would say, that causes dementia, the physiology of dementia, is inflammation. Inflammation in the brain. Inflammation is a good thing. I have like a technical definition of it, but basically when you get hurt, inflammation is a way to protect yourself from being hurt. Inflammation, however, can disrupt synaptic signals between your neurons. So your brain is mostly just a big, complicated neural network. And when your brain has inflammation in it, those neural networks don't function like they're supposed to. That is a cause of dementia. It also, when your brain gets inflammation, your brain produces immunity cells. I don't have the exact term off the tip of my tongue, okay? There's immunity cells that help protect your brain. But if your immunity cells are there too long, they go from protecting your brain to damaging your brain. And so chronic inflammation in your brain creates what's called microglial overreaction. Your brain's immune cells become too active for too long, and instead of protecting your brain, they start to damage it. And guess what? It's a vicious cycle. You know what happens? It causes more inflammation. And that's a vicious cycle that keeps happening. And the last thing related to inflammation is you can get a buildup. If you have too much inflammation or inflammation in your brain that's there for too long, you can get a buildup of proteins in your brain that are not good, that are going to cause neurodegeneration. And you might have heard, there's lots of these proteins. I'm just going to name 3 of them because you might have heard of them. Beta amyloid plaques. You heard of those? Those are really prevalent in people who have Alzheimer's. Tau tangles, another protein, another result of too much negative proteins in your brain that cause dementia, and things called Lewy bodies. And so I will end by reminding you I am not a doctor. I will end by reminding you I'm not a neurologist. But this is the physiology behind dementia. This is what's happening in your brain that's causing dementia, okay? The next page this page should be in bright red and there should be fireworks going off. This is big news. And this news is honestly still mostly unknown. I just told somebody one of these bullet points out in the lobby and they said, oh, but is that really true? Okay, I mean, people don't know this. But this is really exciting, and this is a really hopeful presentation, okay? We are debunking old myths about your brain. Let me review 4 of them. First of all, cognitive decline is not inevitable. Well, normal cognitive decline is fine. But what I'm talking about, dementia and Alzheimer's, is not inevitable. People used to believe that's what happens when you get old. That's totally what people believed. That is not true. It is not normal. It should not be happening, okay? It is not a product of getting old. This is what I used to think only 10 years ago, and I'm in the business, okay? Who can guess? I'm a white male in America. Go back 100 years. What was the average, not age, what was the average lifespan of a white male in America? Does anyone know? Take a guess. You're really close, 49. That was lifespan, okay, was 49. I'm already 56, okay? A lot has happened in 100 years, okay? Now we're pushing 80. I think we'll be pushing 100 soon, right? Because you can plug and play. You can get a new knee. You can get a new hip. You can get a new valve in your heart. You can get stents put in. I mean, it's amazing what they can do now to keep us alive, right? And I thought, well, you just get dementia because you're just living too long. Your body's lasting too long, and your gray brain is like, dude, I only got this much energy in me. I can't last as long as you're making the body last. That is wrong, okay? The brain can totally last as long as you want it to, okay? It is not a function of getting old. The second big headline is genetics are not your fate. Some people think, well, if my genetics say I'm going to get dementia, then I'm going to get dementia. That's not true. Yes, there's some studies. There's some great research that suggests certain genetics can give you a prevalence towards dementia, but that doesn't mean you're going to get dementia. There's also a lot of people who are not genetically predisposed. What's the word? Thank you. They're not genetically predisposed to getting dementia, and however, they do end up getting a dementia. So while genetics can be an indicator of a potential of possibly having more vulnerability to dementia, it is not your fate, okay? It is not the primary cause of dementia. The next thing is you can influence cognitive decline. People didn't know that 10 years ago. Now they do, okay? And the best comparison to this is heart failure or heart disease. 50 years ago, 60 years ago, everyone thought, well, you get old, your heart breaks down, and that's the end of the story. Now we know that's not true. Through a whole bunch of modifiable risk factors from exercise and good eating and all these other things, you don't have to have your heart go bad. It's not a function of aging. It's a function of a bad heart, and there's a lot you can do to make sure that you minimize your chance of having heart problems as you grow older. We have to put that same framework in our brains when we think about dementia. It's just like heart disease, okay? There are things you can do to influence cognitive decline. And lastly, the last bit of good news is you can actually improve your cognition, okay? There are lots of studies and lots of evidence to say you can actually, some people even say you can reverse Alzheimer's. Am I willing to say that yet? I'm reading the book called Reversing Alzheimer's right now, so I'll tell you in about a month, but there's a lot you can do to actually improve your cognition even if you begin down the journey of cognitive decline. This is good news. We are dawning a new era of brain health, and I'm excited today to tell you about what you guys can do, what I'm doing, what people can do to minimize their chance of getting dementia or to delay when it actually sets in, or when you go back to that slanted downward curve, to lower the slant of that, okay? You can enhance your cognition. So just two words I want to plant in your brain. Neurodegeneration is the breaking down of your neurons in your brain. Neurogenesis is the creation of new neurons in your brain. There are things you can do to create new neurons in your brain. And neuroplasticity is another word I want to share with you. Your neurons are not static. They evolve and change and adapt, and there are things you can do to help them do that. So the opposite of neurodegeneration is neurogenesis and neuroplasticity. So that's the good news. Now, what can we do about it? Let's get to the meat of it. There are 6 modifiable factors that you can influence that will dramatically improve your, minimize or reduce the risk of dementia. They are dietary nutrition, physical activity, restorative sleep, stress management, cognitive engagement, and social connection. Let's cover each one. In each one, and I could spend an hour on each one. And there are talks you can go to just about food. There's 2-hour, 3-hour sessions you can go to just about food. I'm just going to cover every one a little bit lightly. I'm going to give you a little bit of science on it and then talk to you about a strategy at the highest level. So you walk away with just a 10,000-foot view of this journey that you can go on. Absolutely. Dietary nutrition, physical exercise, restorative sleep, managing your stress, keeping your brain active, cognitive engagement, and staying socially connected. These are all proven by science to lower your chance of getting dementia or to lower the severity of dementia. And I believe this presentation is available and will be available to all participants, so you can download the whole thing. And also, I'm available, and other brain coaches, one of them I'm going to introduce to you today, are available to take deeper dives on this stuff. Okay? Dietary nutrition. Look at these statistics. Unbelievable. Brain health diet has reduced Alzheimer's risk by 53%. 10% would be impressive. We're talking about cutting this in over half through nutrition alone. And by the way, not everyone's going to follow the perfect brain health diet, right? Even people who are moderate followers of this diet can lower their chance of Alzheimer's by 35%. This is backed up by science. There's 50 studies backing this up. I'm just throwing out there, this isn't a science presentation. I'm just giving you a couple so you can say, wow, that's a lot. So Josh, what do I got to do? Well, you got to follow a diet that's rich in antioxidants and anti-inflammatory foods, and promote heart health, because heart health keeps the blood flowing, and that gets back to that whole vascular issue, right? What does it look like? I wish I could tell you it's pizza and Twinkies, because those are my 2 favorite things, but it's not. You could probably guess what this is going to look like. This is the healthy stuff, okay, guys? Lots of leafy green vegetables. 10 years ago, I worked with a nutritionist to lose weight, and we were really successful. And she said, by the way, lettuce and spinach are of no value. Don't eat that stuff. Okay? She was obsessed with helping me lose weight. But when it comes to your brain, leafy greens like spinach and kale are super important. And the recommendation is 6 times a week. Other vegetables, super important, 7 days a week. I'm now eating more vegetables than I've ever eaten before. Are they yummy? No. I never liked vegetables. I used to brag in college that I've never eaten anything green. I made it to 20 years old and have never eaten anything green. I'm now eating a lot more green things, okay? Nuts and berries will be the next 2. Nuts and berries are yummy, they're easy, they're hand food, they can be in the fridge. You can mix them together with a little yogurt, and so these I eat 5 days a week. Berries I probably eat 7 days a week. Okay, I am now following a little bit more than I used to a brain healthy diet. Whole grains are really important. So there's a lot of diets out there that tell you to not touch bread, avoid carbs. If you care mostly about your brain, you will not follow that. Your brain health diet is not the same as other diets. Okay? You have to remember, what is my goal? If your goal is a brain health diet, you want barley, you want quinoa, you want farro, all the ones that are not your normal white flour, right? Whole grains, really important. Just 21 times a week. So basically all the time. That's a lot of grains. Fish, they love it. When it comes to this comes from Michael Pollan, who's a food guru that some of you, I see some people nodding, know about. Michael Pollan says, when it comes to eating animals, try to eat as few legs as possible. If it stands on 4 legs, that's not so great. If it stands on 2 legs, better. If it doesn't have any legs, That's the best, okay? So fish has no legs. That's your number one thing. Fish is great. Poultry's okay, too. You'll see we don't have a lot of red meat or four-legged animals on this list. And then olive oil, avocados, you can't get enough of it. So this is an example at the highest level. There's books this thick you can buy about your dietary strategy, but at the highest level, this is a brain-healthy diet. And you saw those statistics, right? I mean, it's unbelievable. 53% reduction, 35 even if you do a little bit of it. Foods to avoid. Red meat, not great for you. I eat it once in a while, probably once every other month. I really enjoy a steak, but I only eat it probably 6 times a year. Butter and cheese, those kind of dairy products, not great for you. If you raise your hand and said, Josh, exactly what about butter is not good for you? I will then have to remind you that I'm also not a nutritionist, but I can hook you up with one if you really want to take a deep dive into this stuff. So butter and cheese are not good for you. Pure sugar, I mean, everyone knows that now, right? I mean, sugar is my number one staple. I love sugar. I could live on sugar, okay? I love it more than anyone I know. White sugar, pastries and sweets, you really shouldn't have it. It's poison, right? That's what they say. Sugar's the new smoking, right? It's just not good for you. Fried and fast food, it doesn't matter for this category, it doesn't matter what the food is. It's how the food's being prepared. Fried food and fast food is being prepared in a way that, as you probably know, gonna kill you. It is really bad for you, okay? As yummy as it is, and I love fast food, but I don't eat much of it anymore. So fried and fast foods are out, highly processed foods are out, and alcohol. I know there's some studies that say a glass of red wine is good for you, but for your brain, alcohol does nothing for you. So if you wanted to go all the way on this dietary stuff, you would eliminate these items from your diet. Lastly, when it comes to dietary nutrition, I'm just throwing these 3 things out there. I've got a question. Is it okay to fast? Yes, fasting's good for you. I'm not going to get into details. There's lots of ways to fast. There's intermittent fasting. There's all these different fasting strategies. Work with your doctor. Work with a nutritionist if you are going to follow a fasting strategy. I fast once a week on Mondays. I fast on Mondays. So I have dinner. Let's say last thing I eat is maybe 8 o'clock on Sunday night, and then I don't eat again until dinner on Monday. Yes, I'm a little cranky those days, okay? Yes, I'm not as fun in meetings on those days, but it is good for me once in a while to deplete and put my body under the stress of having no food in it. That's proven to be really good for your brain. Hydration, super important. I think water is yucky. I mean, I like sugar and I don't like water, okay? I don't drink water. I don't like it. You know what I like? Diet Coke. I love Diet Coke. And you know what I tell people? It's 98% water, so shut up. Stop telling me not to drink it, okay? You can hydrate on Diet Coke, okay? You can hydrate on coffee. Now, there's a diuretic function that I'm not going to be able to answer for you right now. About those drinks, but just get liquids into your body. It really helps with your vascular processes, okay? And so you want to drink a lot of liquid. I'm drinking more water these days than ever before. I'm a bubbly water guy, and I probably have 4 to 6 bottles of bubbly water. I don't do single serve. I make it myself in a machine every single day. Lastly, every bite counts. This is not an all or nothing, okay? Small improvements in your diet can have a big positive impact on your cognition and long-term cognitive health. And there are, of course, lots of other benefits to eating healthy. That's the nice thing about this whole strategy on brain health. It's not just for your brain. Most of the advice you're going to get today has a myriad of other benefits outside of the brain. And so this is just good stuff to do. So that's it on dietary nutrition. Any questions about dietary nutrition? I will not try to answer it if I can't. Someone at my last presentation said, what about grapefruit juice? I said, yeah, you can have grapefruit juice. Wrong. Well, not if I have a statin or something like this. You brought up like something and and so I'm going to be very careful answering these. Yes, one question from the back. Amazing. So one of the things you'll notice, at the end, I'm going to tell you like some inspirational things to think about as you walk away. And one of them is, I have no idea, of course, I have no way to measure at the moment how this diet's impacting my current or future cognition, but there's all these other benefits of following these things. And one thing is, I've lost a lot of weight. Another thing is I have more energy and I feel better, and I'm actually able to exercise in a better way than I've ever been able to before. So there's lots of other benefits to doing these things. So I'm glad you asked that question. Okay, let's get to the next one. And these are in order. If you said, Josh, if I just did one of these things, which one should I do? I'm going to start with nutrition. That's why I put it first, okay? But what's the next one? Physical activity. Regular physical activity is associated with, again, 30 to 40% reduced risk of developing Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. Tons of studies on this. I just threw this one out for you. These are unbelievable statistics. There are not a lot of areas in medicine where you have pills and or strategies that make this kind of statistical impact on disease. This is unbelievable. This should be on the front. Everyone should know this, but kind of no one does. It's a really interesting thing. I'm reading a chapter in a book right now about why medicine is so disconnected. Like, if this stuff is true, why doesn't everyone know it? And why doesn't every doctor you meet with and neurologist know this? I won't explain to you why, because I'm not done with the chapter, but it's a problem. But you're here, and now you know this, okay? Individuals with lower muscle mass have a 2 to 3 times increased risk of developing dementia. So physical exercise is both cardio as well as building muscle. Physical activity, aerobics and cardio. The recommendation is, I'm going to cut to the chase. When it comes to aerobic and cardio, you want to do, this is unbelievable, 150 minutes a week. This is optimal. Every step counts. You don't need to do it all. It's not all or nothing. But the highest recommendation is 150 minutes a week, which is 20 minutes a day. The good news is 20 minutes a day doesn't sound so hard. You and I know it's hard. To find 20 minutes 7 days in a row is hard. I'm not even close, okay? But I'm trying. I'm now up to 2 times a week, 20 minutes a day of cardio. And I'm on my way to 3. What's really awesome is you don't need to do intense cardio. You need to do what's called zone 2 cardio. Your heart rate, the framework is there's 5 levels, okay? Zones 1 through 5 of your heart rate. Zone 1 is what I have now, which is relaxed. I'm in zone 1, maybe a little bit elevated because I'm nervous talking to so many people. Zone 5 is when you sprint and you have to fall on the ground because you're out of breath, okay? The recommendation is, and the science has proven, that zone 2 is way better than zone 3, 4, or 5, okay? People over-exercise, okay? What is zone 2? Zone 2 exercising is being a little bit out of breath. If you're so out of breath that you can't carry on a conversation with somebody, you're already in zone 3. You're already working too hard. So a great example of zone 2 exercise is walking uphill. You know, when you walk uphill, you're kind of out of breath, but you're still talking to the person next to you. That's zone 2. Or a slow jog. Or being on a bicycle going like this, not sprinting. And so that hopefully is a little bit of good news. You don't have to do a lot. 20 minutes a day on a treadmill with a little slant to it can put you into zone 2. Strength training. I would say generally when people think about physical exercise, they think about cardio. Honestly, I think this is not in order. I think strength training is just as important. The building of muscle mass in your body, okay, through resistance training, which is, bands and weights, right, has tremendously positive impact on your cognition and lowering your chance of future dementia. If you don't like cardio, but you could lift weights a little bit or something like that, start here. It's just as important. This isn't, just because aerobic is first, strength training is not second saddle. If you do it 2 times a week, that would be phenomenal, okay? And then the last 2 I'm just going to mention because they do qualify, but doing kind of mind-body work, yoga and Tai Chi, count. It's good for your brain. I know you think it's only good for stretching or it's good for being mellow or zoning out, but it's really good for your brain also. And don't forget about your coordination exercise. Some people love to dance. They dance 2 times a week. Some people go horseback riding. Some people, they play sports, right? Like tennis. All of that counts as physical activity. Couple things on physical activity. How do you know what your zone 2 is? What I do is I wear a watch. You can get them really inexpensive, or you can get an Apple Watch, but you can just press a button and it tells you what zone your heart rate's in. And so it's really easy to find zone 2. When I go for a slow jog with my watch on, I have to keep slowing down. I always bump up to zone 3. It's great. When do you exercise? When you keep telling yourself, stop working so hard. I love that. And this is a statistic. This shows age and heart rate, and this is a very general population statistic. But pretend you're 50 years old. You can find this on the internet. Your zone 2 might be between 102 and 119 beats per minute. And so as you can see, as you age, your zone gets a little bit lower. So a little work on the internet, and you can find your zone 2. What's interesting is I'm 56, but my zone 2, because I take it a little bit more seriously, I've done a little bit more science into it. My zone 2 is actually, unfortunately, between 120 and 130. When I thought it was down here, I was like, God, this is easy. I could just walk like this and I'm in zone 2. But the truth is, no, I have to go a little bit harder. So I just like to show this because I'm not sure everyone understands what zone 2 is. And so this is just a visual to show you kind of how zone 2 works. Yeah. Coordination, dual task training, so dancing, sports, 2 times a week. Pickleball, okay, that counts. Not as good as these 2, though. Aerobics and muscle mass building are probably the 2 most important physical activities you can do to increase your overall healthy lifespan, your longevity, and to minimize the chance of dementia. Let me do a time check here. I am good because the first 2 topics are the richest. The other ones I clipped through a little bit more efficiently. So now we're going to talk about the third one, sleep. Not just sleep, restorative sleep. It's really interesting. Does everyone know that you might have heard that there's sleep cycles you go through when you sleep? These are the sleep cycles, okay? There's something called light sleep, then there's something called deep sleep, and there's something called REM sleep. And when you sleep, you cycle through all those. And as a general rule, ideally, about half of your sleep is light sleep, about a quarter of your sleep is deep sleep, and a quarter of your sleep is REM sleep, okay? And this is restorative sleep. What's neat, I do have an Apple Watch. I'm not wearing it today, but I do have an Apple Watch. If you wear it at night, it'll show you how much time you spend in each one. And it's really cool. Here's what it looks like. Here's a chart from a night I slept. First of all, as you can see, I am going in and out, up and down through the different forms, the different phases of sleep. This is what normal sleep looks like. It's really interesting. The yellow is I'm awake. This light blue is REM sleep, REM sleep. By the way, that's when you dream. Your light sleep is about 50%. That's that middle. And then you get some core deep sleep down here, about another 25%. What's going on here? Here I had to go to the bathroom. Okay, that's what's going on here. Here my wife kicked me, okay? So you do wake up. I don't remember all these things, but you do wake up. By the way, if you ever wear a sleep monitor, you ever wear your Apple Watch to sleep, or you buy a sleep monitor, I just find this stuff really cool and interesting, okay? So I probably overspend a little too much time on this, but the visuals are so cool. But if you have too many of these yellow lines up here, you might have sleep apnea, okay? That means you're waking up. You're not consciously waking up, but you're coming out of sleep too often. And that can really degrade the quality of your sleep. Sleep's super important. It's the third most important thing when it comes to reducing your future risk of getting dementia. Any questions on this cool chart? Those who consistently sleep less than 6 hours per night in the middle of their life, I gotta stop hitting myself in the chest. Those who consistently sleep less than 6 hours per night in midlife, 30% greater chance you're gonna have dementia. So if you're one of those people, and I know these people, how much they, when we were younger, they'd brag, I only need 4 hours of sleep. I only need 5 hours of sleep. I'm a machine. Really? You're gonna get dementia later in your life. You need to sleep, okay? Getting less than 6 hours has a dramatic increase in your dementia risk. And older adults, again, there's tons of studies on all these topics. I just cherry picking a couple. Older adults with insomnia have a 44% higher risk of developing dementia than everyone else. That's almost 50%. I mean, it's unbelievable, these statistics. So what can you do to get better sleep? Now, I'm going to tick through these really quickly because I think most of you know this. It's kind of generally referred to as sleep hygiene. You need 7 to 9 hours of sleep. That's the goal. And on my watch, I can track every morning when I wake up how much sleep I have. So I love, and there's also this thing called an Oura ring or a Happy Ring. Have you heard of those? So you don't have to wear your watch at night. You just slip it on, and then it talks to your phone, and it tells you in the morning, gives you a chart like that. Anyways, you should be getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Having a consistent sleep schedule is really important, so I now have one because I'm taking this very seriously. 9 o'clock, I go to bed. I don't fall asleep, but I go to bed at 9 o'clock, okay? I try to limit my screen time before bed. I'm horrible at that. I watch my screen right up until I fall asleep. Again, you don't need to get it all right. You can take little steps. At least I'm going to bed at 9 o'clock every day. I might be looking at my screen for the next 2 hours, and someday I'm going to try to lower that, okay? Reduce the caffeine and alcohol intake, especially in the second half of the day. So I'm a huge caffeine drinker, and I used to, in the old days, drink like 6 to 7 Diet Cokes a day. I have eliminated that. I get 1 Diet Coke a day now, and I try not to have it past like 4 o'clock. Okay? And I only drink black coffee in the morning. So I really have done a good job of reducing my caffeine, and I don't drink alcohol anymore. Create a sleep-friendly environment. Well, that's kind of dark and quiet. You didn't need advice for that, okay? Dark and quiet. Cool is really important also. So my wife and I, we're both really into brain health these days. We turn down the thermostat to 64 degrees every night. And I am sleeping better as a result. What's the problem? I can't get out of bed in the morning. It's freezing, okay? 64 degrees is freezing. Someone said, Josh, you know there's programmable thermostats. You could have it at 6 a.m., start to go back up. We're just not that smart, but we're going to get there someday. But every night, as we go to bed, we walk over to the thermostat and drop it down to 64 degrees. Engage in regular physical activity. This is a great example about how all of these strategies start to compound and help each other. If you're doing physical activity, guess what? You're going to sleep better. If you eat healthy, you're going to be able to physically exercise better. That's the nice thing about this, is that these strategies really do start to interplay and compound and help each other. Wear a sleep monitoring device. We talked about that. I find that really interesting, really fun, so I can track my sleep. And then sleep studies really are the gold standard. If you think you might have an issue, get one. Talk to your doctor. It's usually covered by insurance. You can go into a sleep clinic. I slept like a baby there. The only advice, if you do go into a sleep clinic, is bring your own pillow. The pillow they gave me was a piece of cardboard, okay? So just bring your favorite pillow if you go do a sleep study. And they hook up like 20 wires to your toes. I mean, you look like a science fiction movie. And at my age, I got to pee in the middle of the night. And I'm like walking, with all these wires on me to the bathroom. There's also take-home sleep studies, but the amount of data they have is actually way more powerful than the wearable. So you probably get 80, 70% of your value from your wearable, but if your sleep study is free and you're worried about it and your doctor assigns it, I would highly recommend doing a sleep study either in a clinic or at home. They have take-home sleep study electronic devices that you can use. It is the gold standard, especially if you want to find out if you are having sleep apnea. Stress management, strategy number 4. Long-term stress and anxiety increases the risk of Alzheimer's by, 48%. Practices that reduce stress enhance memory and increase neuroplasticity. This has been proven. It's a super interesting Dr. Richard Davidson of the University of Wisconsin-Madison that's done a ton of research on this. And you can actually improve your cognition through meditative practices and other mindfulness practices. Really cool stuff. So managing stress is really important. I'm having a really stressful quarter at work right now, so I'm aware I need to get things under control because this can't go on too long. Strategies for managing your stress: meditation and mindfulness. Okay, 10 to 15 minutes a day. This is so hopefully you're seeing a recurring theme, which is it's not all or nothing. You don't need to meditate for 3 hours on a mountaintop. You can meditate for 10 to 15 minutes a day and get tremendous benefits on reducing your stress. And avoid stressors. That's a little bit about being mindfulness. What's your name?
Me?
Yeah.
Penny.
If Penny stresses me out every time I pass her in the office, fine, I'll find a different hallway to walk down. I mean, you don't need stress in your life. If people are stressing you out or circumstances are stressing you out, avoid them. Relaxation techniques. Box breathing. I use that. Sorry about hitting my chest again. I use that. When I find myself at work or in any situation where I have an elevated heart rate or shortness of breath, I do something called box breathing. Did you?
Yeah, we did. I had the whole group do square breathing.
Square breathing. It totally works for me. It's like, you know how they say, like, fake it till you make it, smile and it'll make you happier? Like, but I'm not happy, so I don't want to smile. They're like, smile, it'll make you happier. Box breathing works. It's just called a box because there's 4 phases of it. 4 seconds, breathe in. 4 seconds, hold your breath. 4 seconds, slowly breathe out. 4 seconds, hold your breath with no air in your. And you do that a couple times, your heart rate and anxiety go down. It works. You can do something physiologically to change your emotional state. It's a fascinating thing, and I use it all the time. So relaxation techniques work. Here we go with the compounding phenomena. Exercises reduces stress. Strength training reduces stress. Guess what? Getting more sleep reduces stress. And healthy social connections. Isolation and loneliness, as I'm sure everyone knows, is a contributor to Alzheimer's and it's a contributor to unhappiness, and some people call it an epidemic these days in American society. Healthy social connections are really important. We're going to get to that in a second. But if you have healthy social connections, there's a less likelihood that you are going to be suffering from long-term stress. So these are strategies for reducing stress. Other mental health strategies, I'm just threw these in there. Spending time in nature has been proven. Go for walks in nature. It lowers your stress. Partnering with a mental health professional. When you find yourself having too much stress too often, get into talk therapy. It works, okay? It doesn't work for everyone, but it can work, okay? And so the couple of times in my life when I found myself having too much prolonged stress, I go right in, I start to unpack it with somebody, and it really does help as part of a multifaceted strategy to lower my stress. So I want to recommend that. And then what's also interesting is having people, this is scientifically proven, people who have a strong sense of life purpose have lower stress. And the best example of that is faith. People who have faith, religion, Christianity, I don't need to list them, you know what the religions are, they're actually less stressed than people who don't have faith. Helping others, following a calling. And so I just thought it was really interesting. People who have a strong sense of life purpose have less stress. The benefits are widespread: improved motivation, pleasure, mood, satisfaction. Like I said before, a lot of these things are good for your brain, but they're also good for a ton of other things. There's not one piece of advice here that isn't good for something else above and beyond your brain health. So that's stress management. Mental stimulation. I'm doing good on time. Mental stimulation. People with intellectually demanding jobs have a 46% lower risk of cognitive decline. There's a really interesting study about cab drivers in London, but I'm not going to get into it because there isn't time, but I see some people nodding. Isn't that fascinating? The amount of processing it takes to be a cab driver in London, I think this was before GPS, right? Before you didn't have to think while driving. Showed amazing cognitive improvement because of that kind of cognitive challenge that they're going through every single day. Cognitive training exercises that work on your memory, reasoning, and processing speed for older adults delayed cognitive decline and reduced dementia risk by 20%. So every morning I wake up, I have my cup of black coffee, I do Sudoku. That's my thing. I do Sudoku. I do a medium and then I do a hard, just to get my mind moving. And so these things really do work. How do you stay mentally stimulated? Here's some advice: lifelong learning. Take a class, learn a new language, pick up a new hobby. Come to conferences like this. You're learning right now, so you're mentally stimulating your brain. Reading and writing is really good. Doesn't matter if it's fiction or nonfiction or you're just doing journaling, but that's really good, okay, mental stimulation for your brain. We talked about it: brain games and puzzles, chess, Sudoku, crossword puzzles, any kind of strategy game. Music and the arts, whether you're painting or you're playing violin. I got a buddy of mine who is really into brain health, and he used to be a drummer when he was in high school, and he decided, you know what? I got to keep my brain moving. So he not only picked up the drum again, he's now in a band and having the time of his life, which of course also keeps him more social. So it's a great example of taking on really fun activities that keep your brain working. And stay socially engaged. Conversation, debates, group discussions, that works your brain. Last but not least, social connection. Individuals who regularly participate in social activities have a 30% slower rate of cognitive decline compared to those who are socially isolated. And as you know, social isolation is one of the top modifiable risk factors for dementia, as lonely adults have a 50% higher chance of developing dementia. Strategies: talk to people. Stay connected to your friends, families, and neighbors. Join social groups, book clubs, walking groups, faith organizations. Find ways to get out and interact with people, so volunteer and mentor, okay? Giving back, helping others. Of course, that could give you life purpose also, right? All these things compounding. Take classes and workshops like we're doing now, okay? Easy stuff. So, final thoughts in the last couple minutes of your brain health journey. It's not all or nothing. Okay? Don't be overwhelmed by everything I just told you. You take little steps, have big impacts. Start small, grab some low-hanging fruit. Small changes make a big difference. Prioritize consistency over big changes. To say, I want my brain to be healthier, so I'm going to run a marathon, I'm not going to advise that that's the best strategy. I'd start by going for a walk 20 minutes a day, see if you can get your heart into zone 2. It's more fun and effective to pursue these strategies with others. So if your significant other, or if your friend down the hallway is interested in this stuff, see if you can get them involved. The chance that you're going to stay with it goes up. If you follow these strategies, you're going to feel better. You're going to feel better and enjoy other benefits, because there are really no negative trade-offs of any of these strategies. They're all positive. And there's lots of great resources out there. This was like the highest level overview. Okay, I just wanted to introduce it all to you. But if you want to learn more, first of all, there's amazing books out there. I'm reading this one right now, Reversing Alzheimer's. Okay, loving this book right now. There's also this book by Bredesen called The Ageless Brain. Okay, these are books that will cover kind of my speech, but instead of doing it in an hour, they're going to do it over 300 or 400 pages and get into the data and into these amazing stories. If that's the kind of thing you'd be attracted to, I would highly recommend these books, but there's 20 other books out there also. Then there's easier books to go grab, like 100 Simple Things You Can Do to Prevent Alzheimer's. That's just more of a little how-to book. You could just probably, it's probably 100 pages. There's a paragraph on each page. Or here's 80 recipes to reduce your chance that are good for your brain. So these aren't as comprehensive, but they're more actionable. And then the last idea I have for you is there are people out there that can help you on this journey. When you're trying to get physically fit, a lot of times you hire a coach, a personal trainer. When you're trying to change your relationship with food, a lot of times you hire a nutritionist. When you're trying to work on your stress and mental health, a lot of times you partner with a therapist. If you want to improve your brain health, there are experts out there who can make this journey for you much easier and more fun. You'll get working with one, you'll get much smarter about what it is you're trying to do. They will not give you a generic solution. They will work with you to identify the low-hanging fruit in your life. What's the low-hanging fruit in your life that you can start the process? They'll also work with you to identify what are your biggest priorities, so the opposite of low-hanging fruit. What's the ultimate goal? And what's our path to that goal? And they're just an amazing group of people. I'm going to plug somebody I know who does this for a living. His name is Hal Kaufman. Here's his phone number. Here's his email address. Okay? He operates a company called LowerDementiaRisk.com, and he works as a personal brain health coach. And I would say, free consultation, no charge, just to get to know him and to hear his story and him to learn about you. I would highly recommend that you give this guy a shot. And he happens to be sitting right over there. Hi, Hal. How are you?
And I'm also the drummer in the band.
Yes, yeah, he's that guy in the story. This guy is into brain health, okay? Let me tell you. So he's got a million great stories and anecdotes for you, and he's a wonderful human being. And if you want to go deeper, I'd recommend working with Hal or another brain coach. Thank you so much for your time. My name's Joshua Wirt. I got 30 seconds left for a last question, so I didn't do that perfectly. But if anyone has one last question, or feel free to raise your hand. Otherwise, I will bow out and say thank you. Thank you for your time.